so desperately and so focused on escaping. General Eisenhower put out an edict, there will be no more escapes from this point on because we're winning the war. And you're more safe if you stay here until we can recover you. I thought, well, that may be the general's idea, but I want to get out of here as soon as I can. And there were Focke-Wulf 190s flying out of a field near the camp, out of a field nearby. And I found that there was a fellow in a prison camp who had been stationed at Wright Field. And I went over and introduced myself, and he was a major. His name was Gus Lundquist. And he had been assigned at Wright Field and been testing a lot of airplanes there. But they sent him to England to fly the captured German airplanes that the British had. And he had just finished flying the Focke-Wulf 190 for 10 hours. And he talked General Kepner into letting him go on a combat mission, and he got shot down on the first mission. Well, we became very good friends because I wanted to learn all I could about Wright Field because that was going to be my assignment if I could pull it off. And my friend Colonel McNichol, combat, he pulled it off. But Gus would sketch out on the sand what the cockpit layout was, what to do. But by the time I finally got out and went to got on an airfield, the Germans were deserting right and left, so it was no big deal. I think out of 10,000 of us, there were 200 that got out because the German guards were deserting, and we got out right at the very end, not 2 or 3 weeks before the war was over. And I'd been attempting to escape so long, I was a part of the escape committee, and I got a bunch of my friends to start a big fight, and the guards' attention were all on the fight. And I went down behind the building where I'd had some planks in, and I had 2 people that wanted to go with me. One was a Canadian, another was a fellow from my organization, my fighter group. And they were all set with the planks to go across the 2 benches of coiled barbed wire in between. And we scrambled up through that, put that board across, and then slithered across down the other side and into the woods. And all the guards had been watching all the confusion that was taking place. And we were gone. Got out through these woods, and I said, what we're going to, I could see logs and grapevines. And I said, let's put together some wood. The Baltic Sea is very, very cold. We were on a peninsula, so we got to get a raft, and one of us will sit on the raft, hold the clothes and shoes, and 2 of us will get in the water and go out. And so 3 of us. And that's exactly what we did. It was about 1,000 feet of water we had to go across to get to the mainland. And we managed that okay. And spent the first night in a barn in the hay. And the next day we were pretty hungry and went to a farmhouse and knocked on the door. And as good fortune would have it, the woman who answered the door could speak a little broken English. And her husband was a major stationed in Berlin in the German forces. And she fed us. And I just told her we were hungry. And I said, we've escaped and we're going to try to get to our lines. And so I said, have you got some paper? And she handed it to me. And I wrote on there, to whom it may concern, this lady has assisted us in our escape. Give her every courtesy you possibly can. She's been very helpful to us. And so we helped her. She hadn't read the note. And we were going out down this dirt road, and I heard this woman screaming at me and waving her arms. And I turned around and ran back to her, not knowing what was wrong. And she said, I just read your note. And she said, I want you to have this. And she handed me a gun with 3 clips of bullets. And she said, I want you to have this because it'll help you more than it will me. And so we shook hands and off we went. Well, we got 3 bicycles. And the Canadian went his way and we went our way. We got to a German airfield that was deserted. Few mechanics and people like that were walking around. There were revetments. Y'all know what a revetment is? Everybody know what a revetment is? That's where you hide the airplanes and you put stuff on the top of it. But they had all been battle damaged. And I found one that had battle damage, but it was full of fuel. And I told my friend Jerry, just the two of us Canadian had gone his way alone, I said, first person that comes along here in a mechanic suit, he has to be a mechanic for Bob Hoover 190s. I'm going to point the pistol at him and motion for him to come in. And I said, Jerry, you take the gun and we'll just tell him what we'll do. I'm going to take the airplane and go. And he said, got you covered. Well, about an hour later, somebody came by and I said, halt. Motion for him to come in the revetment. He did, and we couldn't communicate with him. And so finally Jerry said, you know, he might speak French. He said, I taught French in high school before I joined the Air Force. So he started talking to the fellow in French, and he understood everything. Jerry told him that he was going to kill him if I didn't get airborne, and the guy just turned pale white. And I got in, I'd already been in the cockpit, and what I'd learned from Gus hadn't read after a year or so. And so I communicated, he had to start the engine for me. And he showed me all the switches, and he helped me start it. But I was never able to find a parachute or a cushion of any kind. So I was like smooth, I could hardly see out. I was sucked down in that seat. Got the engine started. I didn't taxi to a runway because I was worried there might be some people still around with guns to shoot at me. And I just went full power right out of that revetment. As soon as I got airborne, pulled the handle up, I realized the stupidity of what I was doing. No parachute, swastikas, and some second lieutenant right out of flight training comes along and pow. Well, there was a cloud deck at 4,000 feet, so I went up to there for protection so I could duck into the clouds. And I went north. I had no charts, no watch, no anything. And I went north until I hit the North Sea. And then I turned west, and I couldn't land at any of the airfields I saw because the Germans would mine the airfields. They'd done that all across Africa, and our Allied airplanes would go into land and blow up. And I decided I had to see windmills. No, I was in friendly territory. But by the time I got to the windmills, the fuel gauges were down to zero almost. And I circled just an open field that looked like it was smooth enough to survive a wheels down landing. And after I landed, I looked up out the side and I saw a ditch that I hadn't seen from the air. There was weeds all over. And I decided I had to ground lift the airplane, wipe the landing gear out. Because if I go in the ditch and flip upside down, I'd be trapped. And ground lifted, wiped out the landing gear, and I sat there with a sigh of relief, got out of it, and headed for a road I'd seen behind some trees on one side of the airfield, or the landing area. I got to the trees, and the Dutchmen thought I was a German, and they came at me with pitchforks out of those trees. And I held my hands up and tried to communicate with them. And I kept walking toward the road with my hands up. And when we got through, I just kept pointing and I hold my hands back up again. And it marched me right on out to the road. And no more got into the road, and a British truck came by. And I started yelling at him. And I said, I'm an American, I'm an American. And these people think I'm German. And they stopped the truck, and I explained what was going on. Oh, chap, pop in, let's go. So from there,